be a shark in the big wide ocean,
Yes,
where they will have other sharks
yes.
and whales and bigger fish than me. Because if that happens, it helps me to grow and to grow bigger. So the more people I help is the more I grow. Right? And that's how I see my politics and my role in politics. I see my role in politics as being that of a community leader more than anything else.
So, Brother Farley, I have to take a deep breath now and look at your face and give Jehovah God some praises right now for you, because this is some awesomeness here. This is the kind of life that I was given this opportunity to keep right now. It's to show excellence. You understand me? Show excellence in the form that is not to show off, but to teach and to help to mold the young people for the future. So how was your role as an academic and community leader? Because you're a community leader. Prepared you for politics and leadership?
Well, that is my experience. You know, some people walk around and their experiences, the amount of years they spend in politics, or their experiences, which big company they ran. I quite like Obama.
Or their wealth, you know,
or their wealth.
How much cars they're driving.
Which family they belong to and their family surname. For me, just like when Obama came out as a candidate for presidency, my experience that I believe qualifies me for politics and leadership has to be my role, not just in academia, but as a community leader. Yes. I have participated in everything within my community. From the village council, I was there in the village council. For example, I remember one term we had big bacchanal, money thief out. We had to call in auditor, the treasurer in problems. And
hey.
I was at that point the youngest member of the village council. And I had to be the council's treasurer, temporary treasurer, to help sort out that mess and get things audited so that we could have an election, and a duly called election. I mean, you can't pay for that kind of experience in terms of managing a crisis. I have been on the management of Sidey's football team. I heard you say that I'm a sportsman.
Yes.
Sportsman by watching and managing. But
yes.
I have two left foot. But I have been managing. I've been managing a manager with the Sidey's football team for a very long time.
And how good is the team? How good is that
team? The team is Tobago's top team at the moment. The team has won the championship in Tobago more times than any other team within the last 5 to 7 years. We have also won in the last 5 years every single Tobago Cup there is within the last 5 years. And so we have a team that is well structured, well organized. This is no paper kind of thing where we just have a management team that just calling themselves that but can have no organization. We have a properly organized, structured sports team in Speyside.
When it comes to money and everything. When it comes to
money and everything, accountability, when it comes to treating the players well, everything. And the thing is, you can't pay for that kind of experience. Also, I was at one time the youngest Adventist youth leader in the entire country. I took up the role as an Adventist youth leader in 1996. I was in standard 5, right? Before passing common entrance, my church decided, look, you brave, you intelligent, you gonna be the youth leader for the church. And I could recall going to several conferences and so on, and people will always be astonished at the bravery of my church to pick a boy to take up that role. But it's not so much about age, but it's always about capability, and it's always about grooming the next generation of leaders. And so for me, those experiences within the community, those experiences at Speyside High School, those experiences at UWI Mona, because even there at UWI Mona, I was on the student guild exec. Those experiences are experiences that I will take with me any and every way. Because trust me, you can't get a group to manage that more cantankerous than a village council. No about. You can't get to manage where you have inefficiencies in spending and in finances like a village council. You can't get a organization where you have people who will try to be crookish like the Guild of Students. Trust me, we had to call in police and force squad for people on the guild. We own student colleagues. So I have seen it all. I have seen it happen. I have known what it is to bring organizations back from those gutters and from those places. And so for me, those are the experiences I cherish the most. And it would be remiss of me to not even talk about my failures, because sometimes people see their failures as things that they must sweep under the carpet.
I was saying that today. You learn from your failures and you learn from your success.
Of course, you have to learn from
and
your
you
failures.
learn from other people's failure. So what you learn from that is that if I do what they do, I will also fail, and I want to win. So that's learning.
I could tell you, I was once the president of the Tobago Youth Council, and I put that on my list of failures. Here's why. I became president of the Tobago Youth Council at a time when all the leadership within the exec was leaving to do something. So after I became president, the lady vice president became a senator, and she is now the MP for Tobago West, Minister Shamfa Kojo. And then while there, we had 1 leave to join the police, 2 leave to join the police service. We had 2 leave to study. And by the time I look around, it was just me and 2 other people. And then we were struggling. We didn't have the finances to do any major work. And so that to me was one of the blots in my experience when it comes to management of a community organization. But I talk about it all the time, because I tell people, if a leader is to come to you and pretend like his journey to leadership was perfect and everything he touched turned to gold, then you know that leader is a liar.
Get rid of him. Get rid of him. Get rid of he or she.
Of course, because you had to have had some measure of failures in your attempt to do good. Because things will never come easy. You will meet some things that were over your head and that didn't work out the way you planned it. And what you do, you lick your wounds, you learn from it, and you go again. And
because in order, Mr. Farley, you need a certain class of people to be in your corner to work with you. You alone can't run everything. You will be running this area, that area will be perfect. But the area to sustain the organization, those other areas are very weak. There is nothing you could do. The organization will not survive it. So, Brother Farley, what exactly is your political mandate?
My political mandate is to build a new political paradigm for Tobago. And to build that paradigm by way of changing how we do politics and what politics means to the average Tobagonian. My political mandate is about bringing governance closer to the people and closer to the communities. It's about creating a kind of politics where the housewife is just as important with a voice as the academic, as the economist, because both must sit at the same table and be able to contribute to the development of the island. Because in reality, both are intelligent enough and both are affected adversely by the politics of the day. So the mandate has to be to change how we do politics. And it's just about Tobago. I want to see Tobago become the greatest little island the world has ever seen. We are small in size, both physically and both in population size. But we can become the greatest little island anywhere on the planet. We could have governance that works. We could have governance without corruption. We could have governance that is creative, that is lateral in its thinking. We could have governance whereby the people participate actively, and then we become the actual example, the actual textbook example of how governance should work. I am tired of quoting Singapore, Singapore, Singapore. I want somebody to, when they're talking, must quote Tobago, Tobago. I must say, look at Tobago and look at what Tobago has been able to achieve. And if that is not the goal of every politician in the island, then we are in a sorry state. And so what has to happen is that we have to weed out from the body politic people who are just there for selfish gains, and put people who are there to build out an island as never before seen. Every politician now must aim to be better than the one before. My aim is to be better than the representative before me. My aim is to become the best chief secretary Tobago has ever seen. I am not even interested in being the youngest or being the smartest or being the most country chief sec. I am interested in being the best. And the chief sec that comes after me must be interested in also being the best. And if everyone that goes there is interested in becoming the best, then we'll have people who are performing at their best, as opposed to people who are the best at being corrupt and thieving out the people money and not really delivering to the people what is needed.
Yes, brother Farley. Every time, they say, take it with a grain of salt. I take it to the Lord in prayer. This is deep. This is fascinating. And we want to ask, what is your role right now within the PDP party?
Well, I am currently a deputy political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots. The party has 3 deputy political leaders, of which I am one. The other 2 are females, are women. You interviewed Dr. Faith B. Israel.
Yes.
And you also interviewed the political leader, Mr. Duke. In addition to being the deputy political leader of the party, I am the party's standard bearer or candidate indirectly for the position of chief secretary. So I am the person that the party would like to see become the next chief secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. Mr. Duke will be running in the Tobago East seat. He's aiming to become the next member of parliament for Tobago East, so that we will have a much stronger voice down in the parliament on issues of matters of Tobago, matters such as the autonomy matter for Tobago. Me being the party's standard bearer for chief secretary means that I have a great weight on my shoulder to pull. It means that I must assemble a team of bright, innovative, a team of loyal, a team of patriotic Tobagonians. When I say loyal, I don't mean loyal to me, I mean loyal to Tobago first. In fact, loyal to God first, loyal to Tobago second, loyal to themselves and the party third. I am tasked with building out a creative team of people who could take Tobago to the next level.
So right now you are scouting, you are looking out, you are looking for people to fill those qualified positions that you are talking about.
Pretty soon the party will make a call for screening, meaning that we will publicly say to people, hey, we are looking for the best candidates to represent your community. Come forward or send forward your best, right? We will soon be doing that. And
so Brother Farley, someone have to be living in a community to represent the community?
Actually, no. Based on the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, you and based on our voting laws here, you could be from anywhere within the island and represent any other part. So Hilton Sandy, for example, was a representative for Roxborough de la Ford prior to Mr. Duke. But Hilton Sandy was never from Roxborough.
No.
Hilton Sandy never lived in Roxborough either.
No.
Hilton Sandy is a Speyside boy, born and raised in Speyside and migrated.
And live in Scarborough.
Right.
Yes.
I will also tell you that Lennox Denoon was a former chairman of the THA, and Lennox Denoon was from Speyside, but Lennox Denoon did not represent this district of Speyside. While Lennox the Noon was chairman, we had people like Murray, deceased Mr. Murray there,
From
who
Charlottesville.
was from Charlottesville, who was representing. So the point is, the law doesn't prohibit you from representing any other area outside of where you live. You just
Because
need to be a citizen.
do you know that the first representative for the East that came from the East is the one that we have here right now, Ayanna Webster Roy. Every other was A.N.R. Robinson, Basil Pitt, Mr. Wilbert Winchester. They're not from the country. They're not from the East.
Yeah, that's correct. Job, Job, I think came the closest. She's from Moriah, but that is more north than east.
More north than East.
East, but it's part of the constituency of Tobago East, right? But you're right. We have had representatives for Tobago East who are people that weren't born and raised in Tobago East,
Yes.
and so there's no preclusion to that in the law at all.
Yes. So what is your another question, because we already over an hour, and I believe I can't see it, but I will ask the technician how many questions we have, because I believe people had questions for you from the minute they know you were coming. So what are the top 3 priorities of your political mandate? Firstly,
number 1 has to be for greater autonomy for Tobago, giving Tobago the right to self-governance. The reason for that is because
aren't we self-governed already?
Well, Tobago is a semi-autonomous place, but if you read the law, everything is actually subjected to cabinet policy and cabinet dictates. So at any moment, cabinet could decide to do something differently in Tobago for Tobagonians, and we cannot stop them by law. But more than that, let me give you a living example. The THA, since Mr. Sandy was the secretary for in charge of the environment, wanted to create a marine park in Speyside, sent down the bill to Parliament, and all now we can't have the marine park. Why? Because the THA has no powers in law to actually just go and create a marine park on its own. And so it's that kind of autonomy to be able to do simple things like that, to be able to jumpstart Tobago
for the betterment of Tobago.
Correct. That we are clamoring for that. Priority number 2 has to be education. Tobago is a small space. Tobago has a better teacher to student ratio than most countries in the Caribbean and perhaps the world. Tobago has some of the better physical plant, except for schools like Scarosec that going away in the sea. Generally, we have a higher quality plant, and Tobago should therefore be performing better than most of our colleagues in the region, given the kind of spend per student. That is not happening. We are not there quite yet. And so we have to get there. It's more than just having the children pass exams, but it's about having Tobagonians becoming competitive on the world stage. Our boys and girls must be able to compete with the children from Singapore, from Asia, from North America, from South America. Our children must be able to compete. Our children must become the next Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. Our children must be able to create the next great app that will rival Facebook. And for that to happen, we have to create an education system that lends itself to innovation and creativity, that teaches our children to think critically. And not only that, our education system have to teach our children to be proud of their heritage, which will mean ensuring that we put matters of Tobago's business firmly and directly into the curriculum of our students. And our third priority of my political mandate will be to stamp out corruption from a policy perspective and from a systemic perspective. The way the system operates, too many of our people can get away with murder. When we could have millions being siphoned from tourism and going into a fake account in London and being withdrawn, and we can't trace that money. While conversely, we have people in villages in need of that money for home repairs and road repairs and food on their tables and employment and investment. We must understand that corruption in any country, especially in small island developing states, can hurt the economy and it can hurt development because it takes away. So that has to be priority number 3.
If elected into power, how long will you take to see positive, or how long will we take? Because what sometimes has been a winner for politicians is a breakdown for the citizen. Like, take for instance, if you have houses to give out, I don't see why it has to be public drawing with a lottery to show up and to, what is that? Would you do things like that?
Right. So if elected into power, I expect people to start seeing some positive results within a year of being into power. Now, Rome wasn't built in a day, and as much as I can be critical of those in power, I do not now have an intimate working of what's there or intimate knowledge of what's there. The only time I will know is when I get there. As soon as I get there, one of the first things that will happen will be to ascertain what our conditions really are, what the economy really is, what the financial...
What you reach in the kitty, yes. You can't just go in and start to spend or make promises, and when you go in, you wouldn't declare. So we don't know how much you reach there.
That will determine how much. That will determine how fast we will see positive results. However, one of the things I have been campaigning on is building out a coalition of the competent and the willing. What that simply means, wherever we have competent and willing Tobagonians, even if they belong to PNM, even if they're forwards, even if they're living the diaspora as you do, we are going to pull you from wherever you are and let you come have a seat at the table and let you join us in building out Tobago. Because let's be honest, Tobago is too small for the divisiveness. Hey. I see it all the time. I see people who sometimes shun me or don't want to talk to me because I'm the opposition, or they will want to meet me and make snide remarks and be disrespectful. But Tobago is too small for that. Tobago is too small for victimization. We have a smaller talent pool than most countries and most islands. Our island is underpopulated. There are more Tobagonians living in Trinidad and living abroad than living on the island of Tobago. Therefore, for us to make it out of this quagmire, what has to happen is that we have to embrace people from within the diaspora. We have to embrace talent wherever talent may be found, right? It cannot be about trying to give the people who are supporters, just give them a work or give them a big advisory position just because. If you are talented, there is a seat at the table for you. If you are competent, there's a seat at the table for you. And if we build out Tobago like that, then we will see positive results even faster. And we will build communities that can withstand shocks, whether it be shocks of natural disasters or economic shocks or social shocks or even health shocks like now. We will build a society that is more shock resistant. Yes. That is what we have to do. And to do that, we have to pull every man jack on board and woman jack. And woman
jack. So she could be Jackie.
Woman Jackie, yes.
So now let me just get, because I had a lot of questions for you before, but as the live was getting closer, even today, the Spirit of Truth started working me with more questions for you. So one time you having an invitation to come back. Would you be taking that invitation?
Of course, I'm accepting it tonight.
So, Brother Farley, let me ask you, like roughly, what's about the healthcare that you like and what you don't like and what you would change if you get into power?
Right. So what I like, let me start with what I like, because sometimes we always go with what we are critical of, and we
Yes.
forget to celebrate the successes.
Amen.
I like that we have a relatively new hospital to work with, and a significantly larger planned physical space than the old hospital. I could walk around the hospital. There are gardens around the hospital. There's a prayer chapel at the hospital. So I love the aesthetics of the hospital. I also love that at this point we are seeking to build out a new hospital in Roxborough. I love that. In fact, that is something we campaigned on and we said should happen.
Yes.
I love that we also have some dedicated healthcare professionals. We do have some really talented healthcare professionals.
Do
Now,
we
to be
need
honest,
more?
we do need a lot more. We are way under what we need in terms of healthcare professionals, right? Now,
Yes.
I understand. I understand that we do have some healthcare professionals who does form the thing with the long tail and the two long hairs,
Yes.
and does behave very rude to patients and so on. So I understand all of that, and I also understand that we have a system that is broken in more places than one. And when the system is broken, then our nurses and doctors they receive the heat. People will cuss them when things are not working, although it's not their fault. But we must also say thanks to the healthcare professionals who are doing a good job. But I believe that we are weak on community health. Our health centers are shift focus. So, for example, I will love to see this elderly in my community going to the health center in Speyside to do more than check the pressure and test the vitals and to get some medication.
Or dress a
I
wound.
want them to go to the health center and get cooking demonstrations of how to cook healthier foods and healthier cooking processes. I want to see them go to the health center and get aerobics class and do workout. I want them to go to the health center and perhaps sit down and socialize. We have to take community health to the next level.
Next level.
I want to see mental health practitioners at every community center. I want to see counseling, family counseling available at the health centers. Because at this point,
special wound care specialist.
care specialist, at this point, let's say, suppose I have a problem in my family. My wife give me a serious horn and I had to bank up and I'm feeling to kill my wife and I'm going crazy and nothing working out and I'm frustrated and everything. I can't just walk into my health center in Speyside and tell them, oh gosh, I need to see somebody, all of this happening. They will laugh at me because the facility isn't present there at the health center. So we need to have mental health available at the community health centers. So we need to diversify the offerings at the health centers. We have a lot of them, but community health has to be about preventative measures, about preventing serious illnesses, teaching people how to cook healthier foods for their harvest. So all this chew down and the whole heap of provision and rice and bus up shot that people love with the whole heap of coconut juice to make it sweet, and we not watching with cholesterol levels and we diabetes and hypertension and so on. That has to change, and the way to change that is by changing our outlook of community health and bringing healthcare closer to the community. A
Health
lot
and
more
wellness.
services closer, and it has to be about wellness. It has to be about wellness more than just about prescribing a medication for somebody. It has to be about making people well in mind, body, and soul.
Yes.
That's how I see healthcare, developing on the island and branching out. I want to see us do better when it comes to maintenance, having a proper maintenance regime for our facilities. We have in Tobago here a set of ambulance park up for parts.
I was just about to ask you about ambulance and fire services.
And while the ambulances park up for parts and rotting away, you have to wait long for an ambulance. that cannot be. We have to have a better maintenance regime. My mother was sick just last year and died. She got sick suddenly and died suddenly. And I could tell you there were moments when we needed, for example, a CT scan and couldn't get any at all in Tobago because the hospital machines were down for months. And then the Color Hall Medical Center, their machine went down. And then we had to go to Trinidad to get it done. There were times when we need certain tests and when we need the results, they tell us you have to wait 3 months for the results. We need to do better when it comes to time and how we manage time in healthcare. Because time is important. The longer we wait for some illnesses is the more uncurable, for want of a better term and word, the prognosis will become. And so we have to work much more efficiently. And for that to happen, our practitioners have to have machines that work and not machines that break down every Monday morning.
Our doctors have to be taken off from this contract at making them feel like they're not needed or wanted.
Correct. And what has to happen too, you see how we schedule doctors to work? That has to change. This thing where a man just come in and we perhaps need to let some doctors start to work 8 to 4, right? So that they can pay them to work 8 to 4 than these ridiculous shift systems sometimes. That is not good for the doctors' family life and even for the system. Yes, you will need doctors on shift because you need doctors around the clock 24/7. But we need to begin to rearrange how we assign them to work so that they can be present when you need them and not all over the place and so on. I know some doctors will hate me for this, but your private practice cannot take priority.
No, because
there was the public healthcare system.
That died from Roxborough, where she was to get a reference for her mother to see a doctor, and when she went to get to see the doctor coming from Trinidad, mind you, and when he comes to Tobago, he sees about 8 patients, and then he leaves to go in an office, a private office, getting paid by the government, for the day. But he taking time off to go to work privately on government timing. Brother Farley, I know you could answer all of these questions.
Sure.
But then, first, there's a question here for you by Janelle James Alexander.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Right. So the question is, when you become Chief Secretary, and you will, I like that, speak it into being.
Yes.
The power of life, and that is in the tongue. What's your vision for the young people, and where do you see the island going within the 4 years of you being Chief Sec? So it's a 2-part question. Let me start with the young people first. We have to empower our young people beyond tokenism. What we are good at in Tobago is tokenism, meaning I go put one young person on a board, I go make a one young person a Chief Sec for a few months, I go give you a little caca that day, and then we could say we met the quota of the one young person per institution. Tokenism cannot work. We have to start by trusting our young people and empowering them to make the changes that are necessary. Tobago has brilliant young people with a lot of talents and skills, and we have to begin to trust them and use them. We cannot, for example, bring back on contract retirees at the expense of our young professionals. And that's something that has to change. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be some retirees that have some expertise that you can't do without and that you must contract into the system. But it must never be at the expense of bringing new blood and new thoughts into the system. 1. 2, we have to be willing to do things differently and a different way. Young people are coming, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, new ideas. They have seen the world. They have new ways of doing things. And let me give a quick analogy. My mother and I used to get away a lot when it comes to cooking, because sometimes she'll want me to cook the way she was trained to cook, right? But sometimes I'll want to do it differently and try my own style and so on. And eventually she learned that sometimes there are more than one ways to getting the
cooking that
same
dish.
outcomes.
That's right.
And so similarly, we have to trust our young people to use new methods and new strategies when it comes to governance and how we execute governance. Thirdly, for young people, we had to begin to look at this thing of home ownership for young people. When I look at other jurisdictions, people in their 30s and in their late 20s are easily able to purchase a home and living a home and to raise their own families independently. Our young people cannot get mortgages. Our young people cannot get access to the government housing stock or to land. I have young people who went and studied agriculture and begging for land for years to go and plant and so on. We have to begin to give to our serious-minded young people the kind of resources they need. But young people, you have to be willing to work. Nothing comes easy. You have to be willing to work. It's not about giving you a handout for you to feel nice and vote for me the next time. It has to be about giving you access to resources to build out career and to develop the island, but you have to demonstrate with results. If you can't give results, then we have to move the resources to someone else who can give the results.
Nishan, what's going on?
And the second part of that question...
So, Mr. Farley, there's another question there, but I want to ask you one more question here. I want you to talk a little concerning agriculture, because you have to come back. Because I have about 30 more questions that I have.
Sure. Right, when we're talking agriculture...
And
Tobago,
you know, we have to take agriculture to a different level.
Right.
We
so
need
Tobago,
to feed ourselves.
Right, so Tobago must have what I call two things. Two terms. One, food security, and two, food sovereignty. Now, food security we can get easily, because food security is about getting a consistent supply of food, consistent and safe supply of food. Now, people could argue, if you get a consistent and safe supply from Trinidad, then you have food security. Technically, that is true. But we must go a step further and have food sovereignty, which means that if Trinidad should close down, we have access to food because we are producing sufficiently on the island that we can feed ourselves and by extension, export some down to Trinidad. How do we do that? Now, Tobago cannot realistically compete with farms in Idaho or with farms out in California or in Florida because we do not have the land space. We don't have sufficient amount of grade A agricultural lands to be able to plant on the scale like these countries. So we will never have the competitive advantage as some of these territories. Never. However, where we have an advantage is that we can begin to produce in some niche markets, produce some things that we can produce better than anywhere else in the world. What are we doing with cocoa?
Yes.
Why are we not producing the sesame seeds that we need for the Bene balls? Why are we not growing more mangoes? Why are we importing dashins and cassavas from Grenada and the Eastern Caribbean when part of Tobago is made up of the same volcanic land type, same volcanic soil type, which means deep, rich, fertile soil on steep slopes? Why are we not producing the ground provisions to be
the pH balance?
Correct. Why are we not producing the ground provisions for the country? Why are we not producing that? Why are we not producing sufficient mangoes? And I can tell you something, Tobago does not have to outproduce Trinidad or anywhere else, Branded Tobago is a brand that is respected anywhere in the world. When you go down to Trinidad and you tell people this mango come from Tobago, in 2 it sell out. When I go down to Trinidad and I tell them this goat meat come from Tobago, in 2 it sell out. You know why? Because people think that when it comes from Tobago, the produce is grown with integrity. The produce is perhaps organic, is of higher quality, and so they know they're getting good quality stuff. So why are we not using branded Tobago to sell our produce? Tobago population might be at least 55 to 60,000 living on the island, but Tobago has a population of 1.4 million people that we don't need a visa for, and we don't need no special approval for. Because the same way we could bring up kiss bread, we could send down dirt oven bread. And one of my visions is that we will have a place in Trinidad, and the PDP had this as part of its manifesto pledge last time, is that we will have a place in Trinidad that is equivalent to like an embassy. It's like a Tobago house in Trinidad, so to speak, where Trinidadians and Tobagonians living in Trinidad could enter that office and get any Tobago-related service. And that office will be responsible for marketing Tobago's agricultural produce and our processed agricultural produce, like with Benebol and with red mango and with fudge and with tambran and with dashing bush cut up and everything. Tulum, and marketing those to Trinidadians. We have to be actively doing that. So it means that we have to set up a permanent shop in Trinidad that will be responsible for marketing our goods and services, Tobago goods and services to Trinidadians. And if for nothing else, Mama Coco, I saw somewhere that Tobago has about 300,000 people living in Trinidad. Every single Tobagonian alive and living on the island of Tobago have relatives living in Trinidad. Everybody have some uncle, some cousin, some auntie, somebody from Tobago living down there. Of course, and the outward migration is still happening at an alarming rate. And so that population in Trinidad is a population we could sell produce to. I am sure my aunts and uncles and my step-grandmother in Trinidad will love to know that they could just drive up to a place, someplace in Trinidad, and purchase authentic Tobago products. And that is what has to happen. The truth is, our farmers, our agro-processors, they do not have the time nor the skill set to market their produce. And so the THA has to take care of the supply chain all the way to the end user. And that end user includes the Trinidadian.
Yes, well, that's powerful. That's an answer. I wasn't even looking for so much with the agro industry, but at the same time, Brother Farley, we have to go back on agriculture when you come back. So we have a question here from Desron Philip. Desron Philip is saying, Mr. Farley, I need a contact for you, please, sir.
Right, so I will message you, Desron, when the live is over. I'll message you.
Questions. Mr. Farley, right, is your party, if your
win
party
the election,
should win election,
what we the public
could look forward to?
Right. So, Cindy Francine, you the public can look forward to a government that is closer to you. You see, democracy in 2020 must be about people participation, which means that you must be closely connected to the people who govern you, must have access at all times. Let me show you how I run my electoral district. I have people who will call my phone and almost every night, and they will quarrel with me because they can't get on to me whole day. They calling me and then getting me and they texting me and then getting me. That is an example of governance being close to the people.
Yeah.
You must be able to do that same thing to every one of your area representatives. They must be close to you. They must be not just at your wake to flams, but they must be there when in pain. They must be there when in joy or sorrow. They must be there. They must be accessible. I am also giving you a commitment, Francine, that a PDP government will be a government that will go hard on corruption. And let me give you a commitment tonight that I will be willing to give up the whole thing and let me go back to the polls if I find out I end up as chief secretary and I have a team of people who corrupt and like to thief. I would prefer to go back to the entire poll and over the entire election because that cannot be fair. That cannot be fair. I also want to tell you that the Tobago public can look forward to a Scarborough that is more efficient. You will have a tongue that you could be proud of, not a shanty tongue, but a tongue that looks and represents the pride of Tobago. And not just Scarborough, but our villages, our communities, how we take care of it. And you too must be a part of that process, because you too must help us by not littering and so on. And I'll add one more, because there are many others. You could look forward to a PDP government that is big on community development. We have been pledging and we have been saying, when we get into office, we will allocate monies that will go to every single village on the island. And you, the villagers, will decide by the use of some safe mechanism what you want to do with that money. So if, for example, we have a pool of $10 million accessible to all villages on the island to do what they want, you can decide in Bloody Bay that you want to go and build over your community center, or you want some materials to fix an old lady's step, because you, the community, must have a direct input into how we prioritize government spending. We are not the only bright people on the island, so we alone must not be bright enough to do the spending. You too must spend some of government money and decide how that happens.
Nice.
I see Will on Nurse. Do you believe in reparations for Afro-Tobagonians? Will on Nurse, I can tell you honestly that this is a matter that I wavered on a bit. At one point in my life, especially my academic life, I did not believe in reparations at all. But as I matured, I can tell you for a fact, I believe in reparations. If reparations could be given to the Jews, and the Jews did not endure hardship for as long as people of African descent endured hardship, then we deserve reparations too. Additionally, there are several developmental challenges that we have because of slavery, because of the enslavement of the people of African descent. Let me give you some examples. We all started way behind other societies, because with colonialism, our society was set back by virtue of a life filled with torment and pain and disruption, and moving people from their homeland and splitting them up and not allowing families to thrive, and taking men away from their family and sending them to other plantations and so on. That has done almost irreparable damage to us. And it's not about us begging for handouts. It's about us saying European societies benefited from our labor. We must be paid for our labor. Because as Eric Williams said in his thesis, Capitalism and Slavery, the commercial enterprise and the commercial development and the industrial revolution in Europe, that was spurred on, that was funded on the backs of the commercial capitalism of slavery and all its works. In other words, our societies paid for England and France and Germany and all of those territories and Holland to develop. I have traveled to some of those countries. I see some of those countries with golden figureheads on top of the buildings, real gold, all kind of thing all over the place. Where they get it from? They got it from the backs and the sweat and tears and blood and the lives of the African enslaved. And so they developed their societies, and when the Industrial Revolution came about, they turned around and dismantled slavery because it was no longer profitable to have slaves. But the truth is, we funded their development agenda. Now is their time to give us back some kakada, as we say in Tobago, give us back a little something to fund our agenda.
Mr. Farley from Janelle James, well, she said she had questions for you from since last night that this stuff went up. And she said, Mr. Farley, there are about 10 homeless people in Tobago. I would like to know if on your drawing board, if you have any plans to remove them off the streets.
Yes, I do. And it's not the matter of removing. It's not just my plans there, but these are also the plans of the party I represent. Tobago needs, one, a fully functional lived-in rehabilitation center, right? So we need to start looking at the health issue when it comes to those on the street dwellers. Many are drug addicts. Some have mental health issues. We have to treat with those issues in a safe way and in a dignified way. So we need to have homes, halfway homes that they can live in, that they can get mental health attention. They can be rehabilitated. Those that need to be rehabilitated, they can be trained and given skills that they can now return to society and rebuild their lives. We cannot be a society that is okay with passing vagrants on the streets or street dwellers living there. That cannot be okay for us. And many of these street dwellers have families. And, we have to begin to look at how we can reintegrate them into the society. Some went to prison and could not find a family to go back to. Some were deportees and could not find a family to go back to. So all of these intricacies have to be dealt with in a dignified manner. And one of the things that we have to look at in Tobago is that Tobago is such a beautiful and picture perfect and God-created place that we have the opportunity to use our beautiful natural environment to create avenues and create spaces that we can rehabilitate people. Imagine our drug addicts being at a rehabilitation center somewhere in the forested area where they have birds chirping, brooks running, they can hear wildlife, they can sit and meditate, do their yoga outdoors. That is the kind of thing that we need to start thinking about. And if we build this out well, we could even export healthcare, as in healthcare tourism, because you could have a situation where families, the rich and the famous, could come to Tobago to be rehabilitated. When they get hung up on drugs and so on, here could be the place that they come to. But first, we must start with our street dwellers, build out proper facilities to help them, and then we could proceed to marketing that as a service that we can sell to the rest of the world.
Nicely done. Nicely done, Mr. Chavez. Tommy Johnson is saying, yes, I remember a time when you used to help me at the TSTT what is it?
Communication Center in Speyside.
Oh, you mean Communication Center. Yeah, I believe that is the word. In Speyside to do. Yeah. So this person know you from then, while I never knew you used to do that. Crystal Lynch is asking, all Tobagonians need to be proud to have Farley Augustine. Well, we have lost Mr. Farley. I hope he's about to return. I hope his phone did not lose charge. But we have covered a whole wide spread of my questions. And Julia Brown is saying, bright like the tip of a firefly tail. She said, nice job, Brother Farley. Michelle Carrington, husband is saying, what a way to go, bro. Crystal Lynch, Lovell is saying, as one of our own, but she's taking credit. Brother Farley,
yes,
glad to see you back. I read a couple of questions before you
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, but those were congratulatory stuff. Brother Farley, McCall Marika is saying something. Read it for me. You see, these things are so small. Mr. Sandy is a good man. He just made a huge mistake with the Calcutta statement.
But yes, there's a question I wish to answer that I see Anthony Defoe asks. Mr. Farley, your thoughts on Tobago becoming independent, or do you believe Tobago should stay within the twin state arrangement? Now, I need to answer that question because I realize some people are having hang-ups with the word independent. When we speak to the issue of an independent Tobago, we have only spoken about Tobago being independent in three ways: having an independent legislature, meaning that we have a legislature that is autonomous and can pass its own laws for the governance of the people of Tobago and within the jurisdiction, the physical space, physical perimeters that include our ANC of Tobago. 2, we are talking about having an independent economy for Tobago, meaning that the economy in Tobago must be such that it does not matter what we get from the central government in Trinidad in terms of subventions. We have an economy that can fund our own budgetary needs, meaning that we will be making what we need to spend on the island. An economy that can stand firm in that regard. And thirdly, for all of that to happen, we have to have some elements of the judiciary also autonomous to Tobago, so that we can have the issues surrounding the legislature and the economy of Tobago moving at a faster pace. We have had situations in Tobago, for example, where a magistrate at the magistrate court, we had protests about a year ago or so, where people were protesting, going to the court week after week, and case can't call, keep getting put off. That cannot be. But we are being very clear in saying that we do not want to leave the arrangement that is Trinidad and Tobago. We have several jurisdictions around the world where you have semi-autonomous and semi-independent regions around within the country. So you have an entire country, and you have regions within that country with certain autonomous powers or independent powers. If you look just at the United States, you will hear this debate all the time about the role of the federal government versus the role of the state government. And you may or may not be aware that in each state you have unique laws specific to that state. You have taxation regulations specific to that state. You have police and security services specific to that state. You have management of resources within that state. You have gun rights and so on within and specific to that state. And is that kind of a federal arrangement that we are looking for? We have made it clear. We have made it clear that what is before the Joint Select Committee, we have been supporting that process, although there are elements of what Tobagonians want from this autonomous THA that are missing from what is before the Joint Select Committee. One of which is the defining of Tobago within the law. Because at the end of the day, what Tobagonians want to see happen is that Tobagonians want to feel like we are dignified contributors to the country that is Trinidad and Tobago.